Goeienaand, welkom by Fokus. Ek is Lenet Francis. Dis Sondag 11 September en vandag presies 15 jaar gelede is meer as 3000 mense dood in die terreuraanvalle in die VSA. Dis toe 2 passasiersvliegtuie in die 2 torings van die Wêreldhandelsentrum in New York vasgevlieg het. Die gebeurtenis is nog lank nie vergete nie, maar vanaand fokus ons op Suid-Afrika se ekonomie en die impak op jou sak. Ekonome waarsku nou reeds 'n geruime tyd dat verbruikers die gordels sal moet intrek en moet regmaak vir moeilike finansiële tye. Dis weens verskeie ekonomiese faktore en politieke gebeure wat die ekonomie raak. Die afgelope week is bekend gemaak dat die ekonomie in die tweede kwartaal met 3,3% gegroei het in vergelyking met die vorige kwartaal, maar wanneer dit met die vorige 6 maande vergelyk word, was die groei net 0,6%. Dan is daar nog die moontlike vervolging van Finansiesminister Pravin Gordhan, die besluit deur Future Growth om nie verder geld aan Suid-Afrikaanse staatsinstansies te leen nie en dan ook die droogte. Maar hoe raak al hierdie gebeure jou sak? Ons gaste is die politieke kenner Moletsi Mbeki. Hy is ook die ondervoorsitter van die Suid-Afrikaanse Instituut vir Internasionale Sake en die ekonom Mike Schuessler van economist.com.co.za. Dis so maklik soos dit. Goeienaand. Thanks so much for your time, gentlemen. So why aren't we optimistic when we say that there's at least some hope, Mike?
Well, I think, we've got an economy that grew again in the second quarter. And we are growing, but the big problem is we're not growing quicker than our population growth. So we're all getting poorer. But what we see more cars on the road, so we end up with bigger traffic jams. That frustrates us too. And we're not spending on the right things, perhaps. But ultimately, I think we're in a place where the commodity cycle has turned against us. In the last few years, we've also had a drought. We've got problems with direction, economic implementation of the NDP, for example, or any other great policies that are not taking place. And I think ultimately it's really, the average person just feels poorer. They feel it on their back pocket. They see their wallets are emptying out quicker because the inflation rate is higher. And they feel they're paying more for electricity. They see that their children's school fees are paying more. So it's not easy out there. And people are very worried about their future and their jobs. There's no doubt about it.
So we've seen all these changes in our political climate in South Africa. How does this impact the uncertainty with the Hawks prosecuting, then it's on, then it's off, possibly arresting Pravin Gordhan, the situation, and particularly pronouncements from Minister Zwane about Pravin Gordhan. Everything that seems to muddle the political climate seems to influence our economic prospects. Why?
Well, he who controls political power controls the economy. So whatever happens in the political arena has impact on the business of the country and on the economy of the country, because the government really controls the economy of South Africa. It decides who the governor of the central bank is. It decides how much profit a company keeps by taxing, through corporate taxes. So the government controls the economy. So when you have upheavals in the political space, then these upheavals translate themselves into either the rand going up or down or various other manifestations. But I wouldn't be as pessimistic as I think you think we are. I think the people of South Africa have ridden many storms and come out on the other side. So I'm not pessimistic. I'm quite optimistic.
At the end of the day, when you open your salary slip or you see what's being deposited in your bank account, you ask yourself, what can I do with this money?
Well, absolutely. Today I think consumers are looking and they're seeing that rand just isn't stretching. And we're getting more reports of salary adjustments are not increasing with the same rate as inflation. Certainly this year that seems to be the case. And people are really following it. And like Mr. Mbeki here says, it's very true. We have ridden many storms. The problem, however, is we're in a storm now. This is the perfect storm that South Africa has got. No political leadership, commodity price decreases, our exports aren't making the money, we've got a drought. We're not getting the fixed investment. Some of that fixed investment that we are getting is going to corruption. So people feel that. They see that every day. They read the bad press, but they also, at the end of the day, they see it and they know it on their own pocket. They can see it on their accounts. They can see it when they pay electricity.
When we talk about slight, not really in a technical recession, what does that mean?
Well, a technical recession is if you have a shrinkage or a decline in the economy for 2 quarters in a row. That is what economists then define as a recession. But there's other ways to define a recession. And for me, I think, and for most South Africans at the moment, it feels like a recession because this is the 3rd year in a row where the population has grown faster than the economy. And that means, on average, me and you have become poorer. And so is Joe, and so is Sipho. So ultimately, we've all felt that impact of an economy that's really not creating the jobs, that's not creating the wealth and the income for us all.
Why is everything so seemingly unclear? Everything seems so muddled. You don't know literally who to believe. All you see is that it has an impact on our economy. How do you differentiate between what's real and where you're being played?
Well, I think part of the difficulty is our economic analysts like Mike here. They wind us up every day with what's happening in the stock exchange, with what's happening in the rand, and this creates panic in the population. I'm not saying they shouldn't report it, but that's the consequences. So, but you have to take a longer term. As a country, we have to take, as citizens of South Africa, a slightly longer term than the daily happenings in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange about where is the country going. That is much more important. Is the country going in the right direction or in the wrong direction? That's a much more important factor than what the turbulences that are happening in the short term.
Okay, so let's, after the break, talk about the direction we're going and what it means for the long-term slow growth and what that implies for us. Net hierna sit ons die gesprek voort. Moenie weggaan nie, dit raak ons almal.
Let's face it, nobody likes Mondays. But who wouldn't love a buy one, get one free breakfast served all day on a Monday? Every Monday, when you buy one double-up breakfast, you get one free. That's 2 double-up breakfasts for the price of 1. So, no more Blue Mondays. For sit-down only, T's and C's apply.
Introducing new sunlight with smart foam technology, with the fragrance you love, but foam that now washes away in up to half the rinsing. So you spend less effort rinsing and your time doing the things you love. The brighter side of washing with smart foam.
Welkom terug by Fokus. Ons praat vanaand oor die ekonomie en die politieke faktore wat dit beïnvloed. Ons gaste is die politieke kenner Moletsi Mbeki. Hy is ook die ondervoorsitter van die Suid-Afrikaanse Instituut vir Internasionale Sake en die ekonoom Mike Schuessler is van economist.co.za. Baie beter probeer slag daar, Mike. So what does it mean, long-term slow growth? What's the implication of that?
Let me give you an implication of what it is. South Africans have become richer since we became a democracy. But when we became a democracy, we were around 15% richer than the world average, the per capita. In other words, the average person in the world was poorer than we are. Today, we're 15% poorer than the average person in the world. So the situation has turned around 100%. And what we need to understand here is we didn't become poorer in that period. And now we are in a period of slow growth that's already been there for the 3 years. And it's not just about the stock exchange, this is about people's lives. And we've got another 2 or 3 years of slow growth ahead of us by most accounts, including official accounts like the Reserve Bank, etc. So we are not looking at South Africans becoming richer. So we are falling further and further behind the rest of the world. And it becomes more and more difficult to catch up. That is what it means. What it also means is that a lot of people look at us and say, would I put my money there? Even our own local investors, and say, no, I'd rather put my money somewhere else because success breeds success. And that means more jobs are created in other areas, in other countries than here.
What does that mean for business confidence in South Africa and particularly investors?
Well, business confidence, as measured by the BER, for example, hasn't been positive for years now. It's been negative. And the same for consumer confidence. So we are not finding much in investment. At the moment, there is not enough fixed investment in the South African economy. There's an argument to be had. Even that fixed investment that we're getting is not the right type of fixed investment at the moment. There are certain bright spots, certainly, like the IT area, communications, and so on. But ultimately, you know, are we investing in roads, in dams, those sort of things that really can make a difference? More people with water, more people with electricity. I think electricity we're okay with, but on the consumer thing. But if we really need electricity, it's for the benefication type of sector, because that uses a lot of power. That's where we don't have it.
When we had Moody's visiting us, there were certain conditions for a possible downgrade in December later this year. Let's just recap on those conditions and particularly how this political climate influences those decisions of those graders.
Well, I think a lot of the issues that rating agencies are worried about are the public finances of the South African government. The level of debt, whether we can service those levels of debt, the salaries paid to the public sector. They are very, South African public sector, the civil service, are paid very high salaries compared to similar countries. Those are the issues that the rating agencies are addressing. But of course, there's the political instability within the ANC. And this is one of the things that they are concerned about. And in a way, they are right to be concerned about, because the ANC is spending more time fighting amongst themselves rather than addressing the issues that Mike is saying they should be addressing: infrastructure, economic management, electricity, water, and so on, investment. So they spend a lot of time. And now this infighting in the ANC has become violent. We saw lots of people being killed during the local government elections, ANC members killing ANC members. So these are the challenges that the rating agencies are concerned about.
All the economists that I've been speaking to say that the downgrade is inevitable. But what are the implications of that junk status?
Well, I'll leave it to Mike to answer.
I think it looks very much likely that we're going to get it. It's just a question of when. The fact of the matter is it's going to make the debt of government much more expensive. And even local debt eventually will become more expensive, because there'll be a local downgrade as well. And we're going to see that government will have less money to spend elsewhere. It'll probably impact on the rand, but it's not the end of the world. But the point is, it's going to be a lot more difficult to pick it up, because we must remember it was only in '98 when we actually started seeing ourselves as investment grade. And it took us a while for all the rating agencies to get us there, and we kept on going up. But now, unfortunately, since 2008, 2009, we've been on the way down. And that is, to me, we have to change the trend, we have to change that direction, and that's hard. We cannot just do it with PR and Pravin Gordhan taking business and government leaders to see people overseas.
So that's what the question is. Is that dependent on this political climate and infighting and all those discussions that we're seeing? That if the one doesn't happen, we can forget about growth in our economy?
Absolutely. If there is no political stability, you will not get economic growth.
And
Short
the
and
big
sweet.
thing is what it boils down to is economic growth. But the other thing is what we talked right in the beginning about. If the average person in a country is getting poorer, they have less money to spend on financing debt. And that means that the rating agencies are more likely to downgrade one. That's a proven big number. With that, not changing in South Africa at the moment, that is a problem. The last time they didn't downgrade us, there were still good growth prospects for this year, better prospects for next year, and the year after. Everybody's downgraded our growth, whether it's the IMF or any other official body out there. So I think we've got to be very, very realistic that we are probably going to be in a hard period for another year or so. It's not going to be easy. It's not the end of the world, but we've got to get our politicians, our leaders, our business leaders, and our trade union leaders all to work together to turn the ship around. And it's going to have to take their implementation of good, sane policies to make things turn around.
So, Mike, the 26th of October, why is that so critical to listen to this midterm budget policy statement?
Well, to me, as an economist, it's critical because it's going to show me where we're going to spend. The second thing it's going to give me, their forecasts of our growth going forward and what they think is going to happen with government finances. And once we know that, we know what the rating agencies are going to focus on. And I think with that in mind, I think it's going to be very, very important for us to, as economists, to unpack that properly for people. But I think it's also important to realize that this is the first time that Pravin Gordhan's really had a say in something. At the budget time, there was just enough time to change a few things. Now, if he wanted to change things, not that I think he needed to, because the previous finance minister, Mr. Nene, was also quite good. I think the point is, though, that we're under so much scrutiny from the rating agencies that we're going to have to see a much clearer see-through than we've ever had before.
And politically, Mletsi?
Well, politically, I think we are living, for the ruling party anyway, in a shock period. The ruling party is in a state of shock. The loss of Johannesburg, of Tshwane, and of Nelson Mandela Bay metros is a huge shock for the ANC. I don't think the ANC knows what to do about it, but what we are seeing is finger-pointing within the ANC. So politically, I don't expect there will be any more stability than we have had recently, let's say since December last year.
And where does it leave Pravin Gordhan?
Well, I think Pravin Gordhan is a tough customer. He's a very senior ANC leader. He has a lot of support in the country. So if his health holds up and he feels strong, I think he can face the challenges that... Remember, Pravin Gordhan is implementing the Constitution. He is required by the Constitution not to allow state-owned enterprises to misspend taxpayers' money. He is assigned by the Constitution to look after our money. So he has right on his side.
So after the break, we're going to look at the implications then for the taxpayer. Hoe dit ons sakke raak wanneer ons terugkom, hoor ons by ons gaste wat ons kan doen, ek en jy, om in hierdie moeilike ekonomiese tye te oorleef. Bly ingeskakel.
Fellow germs, we were under the impression that all bleaches are equal, but look at this.
When testing thick Domestos bleach against thin bleach simply washes away, leaving germs behind. Yet just a little thick Domestos lasts longer, killing all known germs. Domestos thick bleach kills germs for longer. Domestos supports UNICEF. Buy a bottle. Help change a life.
There's more than one way to say, I love you. There's more than one way to say, this is forever. Premium life cover from Clientele is your final gift of love. We pay out up to 10 million Rand life cover as a cash lump sum, tax-free. Plans include optional cover for critical illness, occupational disability, and a cashback bonus. SMS LIFE to 45538 and we'll call you back. SMS now.
You have the power to be heard.
Vodacom is doing something about drop calls.
Hello? Hello? Are you still there?
Hallo? Hallo, is jy nog daar? If your call is dropped, Vodacom will give you 3 minutes, guaranteed.
That's right. If your call is dropped, we'll give you 3 minutes guaranteed. Switch to SA's first and best 4G network with the least dropped calls. Vodacom. Power to you.
Ready to work from ABSA.
Welkom terug by Fokus. Dit is duidelik dat minstens die volgende 6 maande finansiëel moeilik gaan wees vir Suid-Afrikaners. Maar wat kan ons dan doen om te oorleef? Ons gaste is die politieke kenner Moletsi Mbeki. Hy is ook die ondervoorsitter van die Suid-Afrikaanse Instituut vir Internasionale Sake en ekonom Mike Schuessler is van economist.co.za. So what's the impact on our hard-earned money as taxpayers?
Well, taxes are rising. They're not coming in quite as we expected or planned, so they are under. But for people out there, the average person that's got a job, that's paying personal income tax, that income tax has risen with nearly 10%. And all the other taxes are nowhere close to that sort of collection rate because effectively the bracket creep has happened. We haven't been given the full break for our salary increases, which we need because of inflation, for example. So ultimately, people, me and you, are paying more of our hard-earned money over to the taxman. And I think that's one of the things of bad leadership. And that is something that happens when you, in this economic predicament. Not all can be blamed on leadership, obviously not. But ultimately, we're in a position where the average person just is not being able to make ends meet as good as they did before.
So if we are downgraded to junk status, is the impact directly, indirectly on the consumer? Do we immediately see job losses?
I'm not too sure of job losses. I can tell you what the short-term impacts are going to be straight away.
Okay.
The rand will weaken, therefore you will get an increase, say, in the petrol price the next month. You will, over time, over the next few months, see increases in other prices, obviously. It will, to a certain extent, slow the economy because interest rates will have to rise to compensate for that. So, yes, there will be some job losses eventually, 6 months, 8 months down the line. It's not an immediate thing, or maybe a year. We'll take some time to adjust. It will be a shock for the economy, and we will not get out of the slow growth very quickly with that. But, you know, we've got to then look 2 years ahead or 3 years ahead. But it's not easy telling people who are struggling to make ends meet. You've got to look to the far future. It's a promise that we may not be able to keep even because we don't know what that future always is, you know. We already see changes in technology that coal might not be around, for example. So it's a very difficult situation. It's going to hurt people. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And at least on the price side, it will have a big impact and on interest rates.
I'm going to, in a moment, share one of our viewers' letters, comments on Facebook. But I do want to ask a little bit about what I'm sensing in our country, particularly with the poor, particularly with people really struggling to pay debt. They seem to be frustrated. They seem to feel hopeless because they can't directly change immediately this political climate we find ourselves in.
But they can change it directly. They have shown they can change it. In the August 3rd elections, they changed
but
the
we're talking about
politics.
2 years, 3 years when there's a general election again.
Yeah, well, it gives them another opportunity in 3 years' time. I think one of the things people want to hear is what is the Democratic Alliance saying about the economy? What are the economic freedom fighters saying about the economy? Because it's very clear these two are now the government, they constitute the government in waiting. So people want to hear from them what are they going to do to solve the economic difficulties that the people are faced with and that the country is faced with. And I'm not hearing them coming up with solutions. I don't see the solutions that will give us hope that since they are the rising political players, they have to tell us what their solutions are to the country's economic and social and other problems.
And not only when there's a political campaign that needs to be launched.
They have to do it now.
Briefly, as one of our comments, could we ask the expert, and we're going to end with this, if there is an end in sight for this recession? Frankly, we don't know how to manage to keep our heads above water. We are drowning. 30 seconds.
Well, yes, there is an end. It's just not going to be immediate. We must just say one thing. Many countries have gone through long periods of stagnation. I think we've got another 2 years or so, or at least another year of stagnation. And then I think there are good chances that it'll get better. I can't guarantee that, but I think I'm more hopeful than I'm negative.
Well, at least you are. I don't know about you, Mete. You were saying that, we have to move towards Mike because Mike can give us all these answers. But if there is some kind of hope that you can give consumers, particularly in this time, we're going towards the end of the year, we see these changes and we feel out of control. How do we take control back?
How we take control back, I'm afraid, is we have to take political control of our own country, ourselves as citizens and as voters, and use that political control to manage the economy better than it has been managed up to now.
Well, hopefully we won't give them any more mixed messages. Thank you, Mletsi. Thanks very much, Mike, for coming in. Ons is volgende Sondag aand om 6:00 terug hier op SABC 2. Maar soos altyd nooi ons jou om terug te praat. Stuur gerus jou kommentaar, jou tweets en voorstelle. Skryf net die woord Fokus, gevolg deur 'n kort boodskap en SMS dit na 34444. 'n SMS kos R2. Besoek ook ons Fokus blad op Facebook, soek onder by Fokus SABC en volg ons ook op Twitter by Fokus ZA. Namens my gaste en myself hoop jy 'n wonderlike week. Tot volgende Sondag aand weer om 6:00. Totsiens.